When I was in Seattle, I was able to meet Marty O'Donnell. He's one of the gaming industry's best composers, and he's one of the main contributors to video game music getting the recognition it deserved. The original Halo trilogy's music was unforgettable, and his work on ODST and Reach were also highly praised as being different while still sounding distinctly Halo. Sadly, nowadays Halo's music isn't quite as venerated as it used to be. Halo 4's soundtrack I think is quite excellent, but I can definitely admit it's different. It doesn't quite follow the recipe for making Halo music, and even if that wasn't its goal to sound like Halo music, just like the artistic change, it's a bit of a weird and sudden shift that a lot of fans were not comfortable with. Halo 5's soundtrack was more initially warmly received, but as time has gone on, I've noticed people are a bit more critical of it. And like Halo 4, it's not that the soundtrack is bad, it's just that it's kind of throwaway, except for the few good songs here and there, which, believe me, the few good songs in Halo 5 soundtrack are good songs. Halo 4 was this really high-concept, sci-fi, alien-sounding score that, for obvious reasons, didn't resonate with a lot of people because it was unusual sounding. Well, Halo 5 went with something a bit more traditional that you'd hear in modern action movies, but with that, it kind of came across as a bit generic. And I don't envy the composers for Halo 4 and 5. They had a big role to fill, and it's not surprising that not everybody was receptive to their new ideas. It's important to note that while I don't like the scores of Halo 4 and Halo 5 as Halo music, I don't feel any ill will towards the composers. I think that they're clearly very talented, and wherever they end up in the industry, I hope that their talents are put to incredible use. Now back to Halo. While Marty's music was quite fantastic, a common complaint as the original trilogy went on is that it was more iterative than innovative. A lot of musical compositions are recycled or recomposed to fit the tone of each game. When I see a lot of people saying that they wish Halo's music sounded more like Halo, I think it's important that we make sure what we mean by more Halo. Do we wish that they would go back to recomposing familiar music over and over and over again? Or do we want new melodies never before heard, but composed in the more traditional Celtic Halo style? Halo Infinite's trailer got me thinking about this, just because of the way that Halo Infinite seems to be returning to a lot of classic ideas for the Halo series. We're returning to a Halo ring, the art looks more like the classic games, the presentation is a lot more mysterious and wonderful, and at least as far as the music for the trailer goes, it sounded a lot more like the original games. It sounded a lot more like Halo sounds. Now I'm hoping that this isn't just for the trailer, I hope it's indicative of, just like the art, the soundscape is going to be returning to something that sounds more like Halo. The identity of a series is very important, and while the art of Halo I think is very distinct, and I'm really happy to see the old formula for designing things and composing the look of the universe returning with Halo Infinite, I'm hoping that the sound of Halo also returns with Halo Infinite. I hope that we see a soundtrack that sounds a lot more familiar to classic Halo fans and sounds distinct and haunting from most generic video game soundtracks. But I keep saying Halo sounding as if that's something objective, which it's not, it's very subjective, and in this video I'm hoping to discuss what I think Halo sounds like and what I feel a lot of people think Halo sounds like. I want to remind you guys, any discussions we have in the comments section, please keep them civil, please keep them open to discussion because people have different opinions, and you don't necessarily need to agree with me simply because I'm the one with the mic. You can disagree all you want, and I'd love to hear your elaborate thoughts in the comments below. Let's have discussions. So without further ado, let's begin. For me, Halo music usually involves very Celtic-style compositions, tribalistic beats, ambiance that focuses on subtle religious or ethereal themes, and overall, it frames the setting around you as if it's something magical, something higher concept and grander than the sci-fi conflict that you're taking part in. Almost like this magical fable that's being told. It's odd when you have this gritty war with space aliens, but it's orchestrated around this very magical and ethereal music. It's part of what I think made Halo so distinct. I was raised Russian Orthodox Christian, so I grew up around a lot of choirs, lots of chanting, lots of monastic hymns, and so that subtle, that ancient, that old feeling was very, very captivating when I first played Halo. In fact, it's part of the reason that I was interested in Halo. I didn't really like first-person shooters, but hearing the Halo theme's main menu and getting that sense of, ooh, that's music that I'm familiar with. It's part of what captivated me about the series. A good example of this kind of soundscape is the battle with the Scarab on the Ark. You're in this magical and fantastical location, and right after coming out of a holy Forerunner cathedral, you get into a fight with an alien Scarab walker. The music becomes more tribal, the beat is more persistent. It's subdued, though. It's not overly crazy, but it is persistent, and it drives you to take down this massive machine. And when you finally do take down the Scarab, as the pieces of metal are raining around you, the music suddenly becomes something more fantastical, something more calming, something more magical and spiritual. As you make your way up the side of the Forerunner structure, the music is ethereal and otherworldly. It frames the aftermath of your conflict with the Scarab in this holy light. It's the kind of stuff that sends shivers down your spine and reminds you that this isn't a simple war story. It's something grander than that, holier than that. Halo Infinite's trailer music was quite fantastic in this regard. The music that plays before the Chief reveal is really mysterious, wonderful, magical. It's perfect. I do hope that it's an indication of what the soundscape will be like in Infinite. Less of this, more of this. In Seattle, Marty mentioned that it's important that your music isn't too detailed either. Too many complex string arrangements, fast and complex percussions, and over-compositions can make the music sound muddy and messy. You want something catchy and memorable, which makes sense given his work making jingles in the past. He values the kind of music that you can hum along to, the catchy music that gets stuck in your head. Spartan Assault is a low-budget mobile spin-off that I hold in higher regard than most for its presentation. The composer of the game, Tom Salta, did a TEDx talk about how he shifted from the mainstream music industry over to the game industry and how games such as Halo greatly influenced his decision. It's a really fantastic TED Talk and I recommend watching it, but after doing a lot of research on the guy, it's easy to see why Spartan Assault's music fits so well within Halo's soundscape, despite not really being composed of any melodies we've ever heard. His first project in Halo was Combat Evolved Anniversary, which was a dream come true for him. Could you imagine being tasked with remaking the music of an album or game soundtrack that influenced your choices in life, note by note, studying, breathing, living that music for months? This is an opportunity not many developers have, and walking out of an experience like that, I'd like to imagine you'd have a bit of Halo's DNA in your body at that point. You'd have an intimate understanding of the timing, percussions, style of music, etc., because you were literally remaking that music note by note. When going onto his own original music with Spartan Assault, you can tell that Halo's DNA did in fact rub off on Salta. Spartan Assault's main theme is called Legacy, and I think it really speaks to the soundtrack as a whole and also acts as a love letter from Salta to the Halo music landscape as a whole. It's mysterious, it's grand, it's ethereal, holy, wonderful, etc., etc. The whole game is a treat to listen to. It's got all the hallmarks of a Halo soundtrack: Celtic-style music, ancient and sacred choirs, pianos, 80s-style rock influences, a focus on the magical and the holy. A few standout examples are It's kind of interesting to see the stuff that he did after Spartan Assault. He composed the music that was used in the Master Chief Collection's E3 reveal. They seem to use it also as the main theme in Halo Online, so yeah, if anyone's wondering where this piece of music is from, it's from this guy. I don't really agree with the notion that Halo's music now needs to be composed and orchestrated completely differently because Marty's no longer part of the series. Tom Salta is a counterpoint to this. He understood the ingredients that make up a Halo soundtrack, and with a limited budget, he made a powerful soundtrack that sounded familiar, yet new. Tom Salta is not Marty O'Donnell, yet he composed music that sounded like it belonged in a Halo game. 343 doesn't have an in-house composer anymore, seeing as Kazuma has left to pursue other things after a long stay working on the Halo series. In my perfect little world in my brain, I would love to see Tom Salta do official work for the mainline series, seeing as he's demonstrated a pretty good understanding of Halo's music, and people on Reddit and within the community have started to throw his name around a lot more. In a lot of ways, it's kinda like cooking. You're not gonna throw a pizza into a stew that you're making. If you're making potato stew, you can experiment and make different forms of potato stew, but it's still gotta be potato stew in the end. You've gotta follow the recipe of what makes Halo soundtracks sound like Halo, and Tom Salta, more than most, definitely understands the recipe. Something I'm also hoping for is better pacing of the music. In Halo 5, I felt that the score wasn't used appropriately. The first level of Halo 5 uses a piece of music called Kamchatka, and while I don't think it sounds like music that comes from a Halo game, it's paced really well with the gameplay rhythms of the first level, and it fits the environment and the situation you're in.
She said there was something big happening, and gave Captain Lasky coordinates to find her.
It must be something big.
One hell of a trap.
Contact.
Now the next level, which had you playing as the Master Chief, featured more Halo-sounding music, which was appropriate given the character, but sadly, after Blue Team, the music placement began to get more and more awkward as the game went on. By the time we get to Reunion, the music's placement, timing, and usage is all over the place. In the past, I did a video showing the differences in tone and presentation that music can give a level, and I demonstrated this by re-editing Reunion's opening. Take a look.
Watching this
this location for a reason. Search ahead.
Console lit up as I approached. What was that? It came from the console.
How many years has it been since we used that signal?
Cortana. She's out there somewhere.
Chief, back on Meridian. There was a lot of destruction. There were civilians.
I know.
She may not have known what would happen. Accessing that console activated that large structure. Given the signal we heard, you think she's over there?
Possible.
Prophets are the prophets. Sounds like an elite. What the hell are the Covenant doing here?
Ready up. All clear.
What are the Covenant doing here? They seem confused.
Search ahead. Console lit up as I approached.
What was that? It came from the console.
How many years has it been since we used that signal?
Cortana. Cortana, do you read?
No response. What is this place? Forerunner planet. Beyond that, who knows?
Wherever we are, Cortana brought us here. She's out there somewhere.
Chief, back on Meridian. There was a lot of destruction. There were civilians.
I know.
She may not have known what would happen. And if she did,
We'll learn what's going on once we find her.
this place is incredible.
Gives me the creeps.
Bio readings are unlike anything we've previously recorded. There's a formalness and precision to it all. It seems artificial, but still organic. Halsey would have already started taking samples.
She'd have probably figured out the exact coordinates of this planet by now.
Accessing that console activated that large structure. Given the signal we heard, you think she's over there?
Possible.
Prophets are the prophets. Sounds like an elite. What the hell are the Covenant doing here?
Ready up, Blue Team.
Search the area.
All clear.
What are the Covenant doing here? They seem confused. I don't think they've been here long.
More hostiles. Ready up.
Marty O'Donnell used very modular approaches to his music. He liked being able to add and subtract layers to the music and combine them with pieces he called glue, which were more ambient and trance-like, so that the music flowed seamlessly from piece to piece with these glue tracks holding it all together. I'm hoping that Infinite is able to get a better sense of timing and musical pacing in its levels. I really hope that Halo Infinite goes back to a more traditional style Halo soundtrack, but I also hope that it has a better understanding of pacing within its levels. I hope that it understands when to use certain glue pieces, when to play something a little bit more subdued, when to play something a little bit more actiony, and just overall feel a little bit less messy. Now, I reached out to some of my friends, people whose opinions I trust, And I asked them what they felt made the original trilogy's music so special. And so here are some of their thoughts.
Halo's music has a very distinctive sound to it that you couldn't mistake for anything else. It combines the whimsical and adventurous nature of fantasy scores with the frantic epicness of science fiction. The main Halo theme begins with the mysterious chanting choir you'd expect to hear in a story taking place in ancient mythology, then gradually progresses into the bombastic battle melody that gets the player ready for an intense gunfight. This worked well with the contrast between being a science fiction setting where biologically augmented super soldiers fight spacefaring aliens intent in destroying humanity, with the deep lore presented in the form of the Forerunners and the Precursors. You may be fighting on spaceships, shooting lasers and recharging your energy shields after getting too close to an incoming plasma grenade, but when it comes to the mystery of Halo, it's almost like stepping into a fantastical realm reminiscent of The Lord of the Rings, The Wheel of Time, A Song of Ice and Fire, and the Stormlight Archive. 343's Halo games, on the other hand, seem to have completely lost this sense of magic that came with each Halo game. Halo 4 by no means has a bad soundtrack. As a huge fan of classical music myself, I'd say that Halo 4, purely as a standalone, has an incredible one. It unfortunately conflicts with the previously established tone of the universe. This partly has to do with 343's insistence on removing all sense of mystery from the Halo franchise. When you dumb down the Forerunners to egomaniacal alien masterminds that have an army of super robots at their disposal, the fantasy tone is removed and replaced with generic military sci-fi music that, while generally fitting with the games themselves, stand in direct contrast to the tone the music established in previous titles. Neil Davidge and Kazuma Janaki are incredibly talented composers who unfortunately have been given bad direction that led to their soundtracks being largely blasted just for not sounding like Halo. While Kazuma did an admirable job trying to bring it back to a more traditional sound, it still doesn't retain the whimsical and adventurous nature that the game used to have. Just think of the first level on Delta Halo where you ran around shooting aliens on what we already know is a horrible death machine that's intended to nuke the galaxy. Despite the gargantuan weight on the player's shoulders knowing the foreboding secrets hidden inside the Halo, the game encourages you to admire your surroundings in much the same way that we would admire lands like Rohan, Gondor, the Shire, Rivendell, the Misty Mountains, and even the dark depths of Minas Morgul or the slopes of Mount Doom. The flawless blend of hard science fiction with interstellar fantasy made for one of the most unique and memorable soundtracks in gaming. And 343, despite some admitted attempts to bring it all back, has forgotten what made people fall in love with these scores in the first place.
Hey guys, it's your friendly neighborhood hidden Xperia here. So I feel like it's kind of hard to put into words why Marty and Michael's soundtracks sounded so unique compared to the newer ones. I do think it's definitely in part because their pieces were more subtle in general, whereas the newer ones tend to be far more bombastic and loud and drum focused. Like, classic soundtracks typically complemented the gameplay and the environment and the atmosphere the game was trying to set, whereas the Halo 4 ones and onwards tend to sort of dictate all of that, if you get me. It's like the soundtrack is almost in the driver's seat, whereas before it was in the passenger seat. I think that another really important aspect of the older ones was that Marty tended to reuse pieces from previous games and then sort of remix them just a little bit and slot them into sort of similar environments as they were in previous games. It gave you this familiar, nostalgic feeling, but at the same time, the tracks always felt new and fresh. I can not really think of a single track, honestly, that ever felt reused to the point of it being boring. So they are my thoughts on why I prefer Marty and Michael's classic soundtracks to the newer soundtracks.
Hi, this is Alex from IHE here. So when Late Night hit me up asking to describe what I found so magical about the older Halo soundtracks compared to the new ones, one major idea formed in my head, that being of how cohesive it used to be. Marty and Michael really defined what Halo means to me. All of my emotions I associate with the series are ultimately linked to the music almost more than anything else. I'll never forget, hearing the mysterious main menu theme from Halo 3 at a friend's house, which ultimately led to me going back and fully playing the series to experience the world and story, just because of how much of an impression the music left on me. It immediately sets the tone. The religious sounding choir instantly evokes a unique, distinct sense of intrigue. And it's not just great sounding music on a surface production level. The care and attention to make every theme and leitmotif fit thematically into the world is still pretty unmatched in the world of video games. Every faction and element of the Bungie Halo universe has its own sound, which is achieved with a very deliberate use of different musical palettes. The UNSC are usually complemented with traditional militaristic drums and sounds. The Covenant and Forerunner settings are accompanied by a lot of synth and electronic production, and suitably religious church sounding vocals vocals that help cement their grandiose stature and imagery, and elements of everything are combined musically for the truly terrifying flood themes, just in the same way the Parasite combines itself with life forms canonically within the Halo universe. This continues into the moody noir sounds of ODST and the foreboding, hopeless, heavy compositions that were written for Halo Reach. It all embodied so much care and attention to detail, while lovingly referencing classical music structure alongside the more contemporary experimental pieces. I just don't really get any of that from the 343 soundtracks. They're not particularly bad, they just don't sound like Halo to me.
And finally, now the open mic is passed on to you guys, the viewers. What makes Halo music special for you? What makes Halo's soundscape very distinct from other video game soundtracks? And remember, healthy discussion is what promotes change. The more concise and clear your opinions are without name-calling or harassing each other, the more likely the other person will be willing to listen to you. I trust you guys. Most of the comments in my comment section are very respectful and mature, so I'm going to hand it off to you guys now. And ultimately, if you enjoyed the video, remember to like this video, share it around. It really helps the channel and it helps promote discussions within the Halo community. And guys, I'll see you on the next video.